There's no denying that the Coca-Cola Company and PepsiCo are two of the largest and most recognizable food and beverage brands in history, each with hundreds of products sold in markets worldwide. They're the most well-known and widely used sodas in the world, from television and print ads to celebrity endorsements and iconic product placement in feature films. The company's influence knows no bounds, but despite their current international dominance, both of these mega brands had humble beginnings, originating in 19th century pharmacies in the American South. It is interesting to see how these two cola giants stack up next to each other for more than a century now. Now, the cola wars are the longtime rivalry between soft drink producers. The Coca-Cola Company and PepsiCo have engaged in mutually targeted marketing. The Coca-Cola Company has been offered the chance to buy Pepsi's business multiple times, including for only $50,000 in 1993. But Coke turned them down, and instead, Coke tried to sue Pepsi for using the word cola in their ads, claiming that they were trying to rip off Coca-Cola's products. But this was backfired when Pepsi countersued that Coke was using anti-competitive tactics to build a monopoly. The courts concurred and ruled that cola was a generic term anybody could use. Anyhow, since Coke missed the opportunity to buy Pepsi, they wound up getting stuck in a continuous marketing battle with them. A point came when both Coke and Pepsi started reducing their prices and offering discounts to try and compete with each other, but they soon realized this was hurting both of them and a poor marketing strategy. Now, whether they made a secret deal behind closed doors or not is unknown, but soon, they both returned to their normal pricing and tried to compete through marketing and advertisement instead. So eventually, Pepsi had the simple but genius idea to actually compete on taste. In 1975, Pepsi launched the Pepsi Challenge, where they gave people two white cups, one containing Pepsi and one containing Coca-Cola. People didn't know which was which and were encouraged to taste both to see which they preferred. The test results showed that Pepsi was preferred by slightly more people, and so Pepsi started using this stat in all of their advertising, and all across America, more people picked Pepsi time after time. Of course, Coke completely denied this was true, but when they conducted their own tests, they found that Pepsi did indeed score slightly higher in a blind taste test. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola was gradually losing market share. They tried everything huge, marketing campaigns and price promotions, yet every year consistently, Coke's market share slightly declined, and Pepsi shares were slightly increasing. It began to appear that maybe the Pepsi challenge was right. The problem was that more people simply preferred the taste of Pepsi, and thus Coca-Cola began an incredibly secret mission. They were going to change Coke's formula. After thorough testing and trials, they discovered another new color formula that reliably performed better compared to both original Coke and Pepsi. Again and again, they repeated the blind taste test, and the data was clear. The new formula was more popular, and so on the occasion of Coca-Cola's 100-year anniversary, they did the unthinkable. They did which had never been done before by anyone. They changed the Coca-Cola formula and replaced it with new Coke. Coca-Cola announced the most significant development in its history. After this launch, Pepsi-Cola stated that Coke is merely trying to match Pepsi's success. The two products, Pepsi and Coke, have been going at it eyeballed, and the other guy just blinked and immediately the chaos began. Soon after this new formula, every single day thousands of phone calls and letters arrived at Coke's offices. They were a mixture of distraught, people literally begging for the old version of Coke back, and some people were downright furious how Coke had the nerve to take away the original formula. Coke expected the uproar would soon die down, especially once people actually tried the new formula. But as time passed, the outrage simply intensified. The media was similarly full of outrage reports, and the Coke phone lines were constantly jammed with complaints for months. When new Coke advertisements were shown on giant screens in stadiums, people loudly booed. It became popular to hate new Coke, of course. Many of the people complaining hadn't even tried the new formula. As one Coke employee put it, "We could have introduced the elixir of the gods, and it wouldn't have made any difference." Soon it became clearly evident that the taste hadn't been the issue. It didn't really matter if new Coke technically tasted better in blind taste tests. Coke's success was never dependent on taste. Rather, it was all about its incredible marketing strategy that the people of the world viewed Coca-Cola as an old friend, a part of everyday life. For around 100 years, Coke had been present, never changing no matter what was going on in the world. It was an icon, and changing something that meant so much to people was considered a betrayal. One angry letter commented that changing Coke is like making the grass purple. Another claimed, "You've taken away my childhood." Even months later, the protests were not dying down, and it soon became quite clear that the company had to revert back to the old formula. They had made a huge mistake. There have been very few instances in history of such strong backlash against the company's decision. And yet, despite that, the new Coke disaster ended up being one of Coke's greatest marketing triumphs. You see, when Coke gave in and brought back the original formula under the name Classic Coke, suddenly all of the anger turned to euphoria and praise. Suddenly, all the letters and phone calls arriving at the company were filled with adoring fans thanking the company and commenting how much it meant to them. One Coke market said you would have thought we'd invented a cure for cancer. Immediately after reintroducing the old flavor, Coke sales dramatically increased. Businessweek named the whole thing the marketed blunder of the decade, but some skeptical analysts felt the company had staged the entire thing for publicity and to remind customers how much Coke means to them. If the whole stunt really was planned, it would be one of the greatest marketing strategies imaginable. But that was not the case at all. It's human psyche that sometimes when something is taken away, then people generally realize the importance of it, just like in the case of Coke. They had been taking it for granted for long. New Coke was a catastrophic misjudgment by Coke. They really thought people would prefer New Coke. In fact, even after they reintroduced the classic version, they kept New Coke available in shops as well because they thought once people actually had more time to try the new flavor, eventually people would convert to the new formula. The president of Coca-Cola, Don Keough, addressed the public through television, making it clear that when they brought the new taste of Coke, they knew that millions would prefer it, and they knew that it would beat the taste of their major competitor. But what they didn't know was how many thousands of people would phone and write asking them to bring back the classic taste of original Coca-Cola. So they listened to the people. He said that both Coke and Coca-Cola Classic are for public to make their own choice. But they were wrong again. Sales of New Coke never improved, and eventually it was removed from circulation completely. However, despite being so completely wrong, the end result was that New Coke had unintentionally made people realize how much they loved original Coke. The whole thing helped people feel more attached and loyal to Coke than ever before. By taking the classic taste of Coke away, it showed people how much they missed it. When it was gone, it was a reminder how important to them Coca-Cola was, and so even though temporarily removing Classic Coke created a huge backlash against the company as soon as they brought it back, Coke sales increased, and people felt really grateful to the company, and thus, New Coke was one of the most successful mistakes ever. So, this is how the two competitors have been trying to beat each other in the market. But one mistake of Coke proved to be a blessing in disguise. Hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and see you guys soon.